Hello, everybody. This is a male space, and I have with me tonight Andy Nowicki and Lamprey Milt. So, could either of you, both of you, do a brief introduction on yourselves?
I'll let Andy go first.
Yeah, well, what can, what can I say about myself that isn't already known, really? I'm I've written for lots of dissident right venues, maybe most notoriously the original alternativeright.com. I was a writer and an editor for that venue a while ago. And I've written a few books, both fiction and nonfiction, and now I have a Substack page where I write most of my articles, and um, I'm still operating a YouTube channel, so that's pretty much me.
Okay, and Lamprey, you go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Lamprey Milt. I am the host of the MGTOW Chats podcast / live stream. I write for the American Sun. I've been doing uploads for probably about 7 or 8 years now, and this is the third show I've done with you. So absolute pleasure.
Yes, great to have you on, both of you. So, today we're going to be having a discussion of the incel topic. And I initially thought I was not going to touch this topic, but being that I have a channel called A Male Space dealing with the male experience in the current day, I think that it is impossible to not cover this topic, and it is an important topic. And just to let's say give a preclude that it is not going to be discussion. I do not aim to have a discussion of how to pick up women or what's attractive to women, however that might be touched upon. But the aim of this discussion is not how to pick up women, because we're dealing with a situation in which many men these days, I would say an inordinate amount of men, are womenless, and the incel phenomenon has probably always existed throughout mankind. There have always been men who have not reproduced or had women, but today in the West, specifically North America, and we're in America right now, that if you two have it, if I have it right, perhaps you two can confirm it or say a different stat, that most of these polls I've been reading have stated that 60+% of young men, I believe in the age range of 18 to 35 or perhaps 18 to 30, I forgot the exact age range, have not even had any contact or relationship of sorts with the woman in over a year. Do I have that correct? Is that what you two have been reading as well?
That's what I've heard.
Okay.
Yeah, more or less, for sure.
Okay. Yes. And I consider this a major problem because one of the issues that gets on my nerves, to be honest, is that I've seen from the elites, for example, influencers, especially so-called right-wing or Republican or conservative influencers, and right-wing politicians, the party of family values, constantly exhorting men to get married and constantly talking about a negative birth rate. But as I told you, Lamprey, in a discussion of ours, that perhaps we should find out why men cannot even get a date in the first place, let alone be concerned about a birth rate. Does that make sense to both of you that there's no examination of the divorce regime and the sexual market? No examination of that either. But we have older men, influencers, powerful men, exhorting men to get married and have children. How is that going to be possible when we have a population that has 60+% of its young men unable to even have a so-called relationship?
Yeah, I think that for a lot of them, I think a lot of them are employing what they would consider to be quote unquote tough love, and saying, look, young men, you got to stop being such. Well, we're not supposed to say. We're supposed to be professional, so I won't say the word that I was thinking. But you gotta stop being such wimps.
Yes.
You gotta you, you gotta and then sort of approaching it in that way instead of trying to really understand. I've got a I've got a son who's 20, almost 20 right now, and I think he's doing okay in that department. But I also my heart truly does go out to him and to his friends, and I understand it's not it's not going to come through tough love from, an elder spokesman, a Gen Xer or a boomer, just saying, look, just sounding out of touch, sounding like they don't know what they're talking about, because they don't know what younger men are facing these days. It's a whole different ball game.
Exactly. Lamprey, do you have anything to add to that?
As I mentioned, I have a younger brother who's going to be 16 in a few days. And, I live vicariously through him. He seems to be doing pretty well in the woman department. That's easy, though, in high school and probably for college. But once you get into your mid 20s, where you're no longer in that social circle and you're kind of fending for yourself, it makes things quite difficult because it really comes down to who you're around and your job. And a lot of guys are kind of moving more and more away from the corporate direction where you would be interacting with more women. So guys that are in the trades, for example, they're not necessarily around women as much. So for guys like them, it's quite hard to find someone, find the opposite sex, try to get laid.
Uh,
Yes. I mean, the way I look at it, that with sexual liberation and the sexual revolution, there was eventually bound to be an inordinate amount of men single, womanless. That just simply was going to happen. And I would like to, let's say, get to what we can define incel as, because the way that I have it, the woman who came up with the term, uh, I think it was about 2 decades ago, who came up with the term incel, which stands for involuntarily celibate, actually just simply meant someone who has not found a partner despite wanting one in 6 months. So that would actually make it a small window to become an incel, whether you are a female incel or a male incel. If you go 6 months wanting a partner but having no partner, then the person is an incel. And when I first came across this term, the definition seemed like a neutral term to me. It just simply meant a womanless man. In most cases, it could be a manless woman, but in most cases, it's a womanless man. And I thought, okay, there are men like this. And at the time, I thought there was, let's say, an increasing amount of men like this. So I thought there was no negative connotation around this term. Then, as I, let's say, browsed the internet over the years, this term came to be a negative term. And it was no longer a man just simply without a woman. It was a man who went online or goes online and says all sorts of nasty things about society and women. And
mhm.
but then we have no definition of what a womanless man is. So what if a man is womanless, but he's not saying all these, he's not lashing out at society, he's not saying mean things about women online? Is that an
Mhm.
incel? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes. Well, I wrote a piece not long ago. Uh, I think it was called the Incel Psyop. Maybe you and I talked about this at the
Yes,
time, and
I read it.
I drew attention to how, um, when when I was younger, when I was a young man, that guys who were not successful with women, who didn't who didn't have a lot of girlfriends, or who were struggling to find love, or whatever, however you want to put it, struggling to find a girlfriend, that they would be called things like dorks and nerds and losers, and those weren't nice terms, but it didn't suggest that there was some pathological problem with them. And these were terms that tended, like, if a guy called himself a dork, or a geek, uh, or a loser, or something like that. These were the sort of terms that tended to engender sympathy in others, and tended to broadcast the idea that these were guys. These are probably nice guys, and let's just they're lonely, so let's help them out. Let's make them feel better about themselves, and and so forth. But recently, the term incel, as you say, that in its inception, was by a feminist woman talking about herself. Maybe she was even a lesbian. I don't know, but in any case, the inception of the term doesn't really have much relationship to what happened to the term or where the term went. And where it went was to talk about the same kind of men who were called dorks or geeks or spazzes or whatever, insulting terms, but again, terms that were not suggesting that these guys were just evil or pathological or what have you. But now, if you're a man and you're struggling, romantically, it's almost like society wants to just see you as a villain. Society wants to see you as somebody who's dangerous, and that's because that's the connotation that the term incel has. It's somebody who's unpleasant to be around, who's angry, who's bitter, who's misogynistic, and who might very well be dangerous, and so now the men who are let's say low status or just have a hard time romantically, there's it's gotten to be so that our society more or less sees them or calls them is inclined to call them incels, and that all of the connotation of the term incel is negative as it currently stands. When it was coined by this lady however many years ago, it was just a neutral term, but now it's an extremely negative term, and I can't help but think that not to I don't want to immediately come to paranoid conclusions or what have you, but why did we see this change take place? Why are low status men now not looked on with sympathy, but are called incels and are hated and spat on?
Well, I actually think in the term incels is now becoming counterculture where it doesn't have the same connotation that we're kind of used to seeing over the past, I guess, decade now. So people, if you throw the word incel around, it's like throwing the word racist around. It really doesn't mean anything anymore because you're talking about what, half the male
Right.
population? Well, okay, great. Yep. Mm-hmm. So I don't
Yeah.
think it really means it's not as negative of a term as it once
Right.
was. I think especially with the way the weather vane politically is swinging in the opposite direction of I guess woke culture and
Mhm.
progressive policies. So yeah, all right. So 50% of the male population is not getting laid. I'm an incel. Okay, what now? I've even starting to see T-shirts incel inside. Like instead of Intel, it says incel. I was like,
Yeah.
that is hilarious. Yeah,
Pretty
so
funny.
I don't think, like I said, I don't think it means much anymore. And incel can be is kind of an umbrella term for NEETs, 13th graders, stay at home sons. It's now this big encompassing umbrella for just men who are single and are not making. I wouldn't
Mhm.
even think it doesn't even matter how much money you make actually. So it doesn't. Again,
Yeah.
it doesn't really mean. Doesn't really. The word just doesn't stick.
Mhm.
Right. I see your point. But you see, what I find amusing is that I'm 46 years old now. As you both know, I have two children. I'm married. I'm 46 years old. And when I've told people before that I considered myself, I didn't know the term because there was no term incel in the mid to late 90s or early 2000s. So I was 20 years old in, let's say, 1999 and 2000. So I've told people that in 1999 to 2000, although I was not a virgin anymore, have told people that I was an incel. And I've actually had some people who've told me, no, you were not an incel. But then I've told them back, I said, wait, how is that? What do you mean? I wanted a girlfriend, but I didn't have a girlfriend. I was finding it very difficult to get a girlfriend. So how was I not an incel? And some of them have actually been annoyed that I said back then I was an incel. And why would that stir in someone annoyance? I mean,
Mhm.
it's not a complimentary thing to say about oneself. I mean, if you called yourself, you say, "Hey, I was an incel till 20 years old." You're not even like bother. You're not. I'm not bothering or criticizing anybody else. I'm not
Mhm.
criticizing society. So why would someone be annoyed at me, though? Do you have anything to say on that?
It seems like the connotation of an incel is somebody who's never been with a woman, or if, or maybe if you've only been with a woman who you've paid, uh, then you're still an incel. But I think maybe the idea is that if you've ever had a girlfriend or if you've ever had sex, that wasn't paid, where you didn't have to pay for it. Of course, we all pay in one way or another, but that's a different story. But
I
you
understand.
didn't have to actual you didn't have to give out actual currency
Right.
to have to be able to have sex. Then
Right.
I think that's probably why people were getting annoyed with you, because you were but this, you say this was around the turn of the century when you were having these discussions.
No, I mean, I've had discussions now about it. It's
Oh, okay.
2025. So when I was 19 to 20, around that
Yeah.
era time, I didn't get my first girlfriend until 20. I mean, I had some so-called fooling around experiences and actually had sex before, but not much. But I didn't get the girlfriend till then, and I would say there was a greater than 6 month period without having
Well,
a woman, maybe even maybe longer than 6 months. I
there,
was looking for a girlfriend, and I would say that that fits the definition. And then I would even
there's
show people. Go ahead.
there's some where I didn't mean to cut you off, but there's
Sorry.
some men who call themselves incels, who are really protective and who, as they say, gatekeep the term. And if you're not one of them, you're a fake cell. Maybe
Oh,
you've
yeah.
heard this.
Yeah, I heard the
And
fake cell. Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know, and they get really, really angry about, because for them it's like, it's almost like this question of authenticity, where you only really qualify for the incel definition if you are just somebody who's absolutely never gotten any action at all whatsoever, and you're like a one, and
I
you're,
see.
I don't know, you're hideously ugly, and what have you. So they get really kind of upset and angry, and unduly angry, I think, where with people who claim to be an incel, and then they find out, but you had a girlfriend once, or you got kissed once, or so they really, like, the way they define it, it becomes more and more just like, you've got to just have had no contact at all whatsoever with women, and so I don't know who you were talking to. If you were talking to guys like that, uh, then maybe that was why they responded to you that way.
I've discussed it in some X spaces with men and women. Uh,
Okay.
yes. So, Lamprey, do you have anything to add to that? Why
No,
someone?
no, I'm listening. Keep going.
Okay. Well, I mean, we've discussed the definition though, but I prefer to stick to the first definition, because if we're not going to use incel as it once was, then perhaps we're just going to have to use the word womanless man. How if the incel term is only for so-called incel culture and men who are have a culture to this, or lash out online and
Mhm.
vent their frustrations, then where do we leave men? How do we describe a man who doesn't do that but is still womanless? So I guess we're not going to use. I'm being sarcastic, but we're going to have to
Right.
use the word womanless man, because to have 60+% of the male population in a country, society, that poses a certain. It creates civil unrest, and it is not good for a birth rate. It's certainly not good for society at all, generally speaking.
Right.
And we can see that there are serious consequences to this, because, and excuse me, there are serious consequences to this. And I would like to go into the causes of this, because I've seen much of the talk around the incel phenomenon, or womanless man phenomenon, put on individual men in nearly all cases. most of the time when
Mhm.
I've seen this discussed or heard of it talked about in content, that it is on the individual man. The individual man
Yeah.
is not earning enough money. He is not so-called just lifting. He is not tall enough. He does not have enough friends. You see, my view is that this is the symptom of a broken society. And the way to go about this, to discuss this, I think, even with the example of, let's say, these talking heads like Scott Galloway and Jordan Peterson and these other tough guys who are exhorting men to approach women, like Robert, I think his name is Robert Henderson. He's talking about this phenomenon, also the sexual dynamics, this topic. He has said
Mhm.
in his posts on X and Substack that men are not approaching women. And the reason why men don't have women is because they're wimps and they cannot face rejection. Now, my view, and I've said to both of you before, if we are reliant on men approaching women, which I believe, like literally almost no relationships form from approaching, let alone a cold approach, then society is in really bad shape, because going back to the 90s and 2000s, there were men who approached women. I've actually approached women in my life when I was younger, but it was minimal. I mean, the guys who approached women were really the slickest, most outgoing and gregarious men who already had women that they already were screwing, had girlfriends already. These were men who just very, the so-called term, good with women. Other men, nearly all men, did not have to meet women. They simply knew women. You went to a keg party. You had a part-time job buttering bagels, and there was a cute girl there. You met through friends. You met through family. You met through a religious institution. Now there's all this pressure to approach, when my view, as I'm stating here, is that this is the symptom of a broken society that does not have those means to meet mates anymore, or not as much. What do you two think of that?
I think it was always in the background, these type of problems. You look at any statistic, you saw just dating, marriage, birth rates, so on and so forth declining. You can go back to when contraception came into society, but yeah, it's always been kind of lurking in the background, and social media exacerbated these problems quite a bit in the kind of like the 2010-ish range, and then COVID really toss gas on the fire. And one has to take into note that most people are wrapped up in their own lives. They're distracted by many different things. Take me, for example. I just don't have the time really to entertain, spend a couple hours over the phone talking and getting to know someone, and for it to go nowhere. Most guys tend to just kind of like, all right, you're just gonna eat chicken nuggets and watch a porno and work my wagey cagey. And women are in the thrall of it all. I mean, they get a lot of attention via social media. They have their girlfriends to talk to. Many are kind of wrapped up in the whole, corporate working, careerism, so on and so forth. So it's not surprising that these problems have come up. And then also with social media and dating apps for that matter, women can just phone in the best looking guy and have sex with them and then go back their daily drudgery, versus trying to have a slog fest with some guy that they feel is inferior to them. It's not worth it. They can just get what they want having sex with some guy. He's there for attention. And
Validation.
yeah, and then there's just no reason to really have a converse with someone who's more or less equal to them, look wise and socio and class wise also.
I would say that I don't know if you remember, if you've been paying attention on to online stuff at all, but just recently, like in the last month or so, there was this video that came out about it was like some Mormon dating like some dating contest or something, where like like there's a curtain between where the guys are, and Mormon society is of course a little bit different, more family oriented, more marriage oriented than the rest of the Western society. But there was this video where this girl gets up and she's kind of dorky, and she's kind of like she kind of goes on and on, and so you'll know the video I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
Where
The redheaded woman.
yeah, she's redheaded. She's a redhead, and she goes on and on about like, I want to go, I want to travel a bunch of places. I'd like to have a travel buddy. And, I don't think I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with her. I mean, I'm not, she seems to me like she's probably nice, but she just wasn't, she just did not appeal to the guys who were there because, well, for a couple of reasons. One, she keeps talking about traveling, and they're probably thinking, who's gonna. So is she just looking for somebody to pay for her to go skiing and stuff like that? And also there was just, she didn't talk at all about wanting to be to be a good wife and the importance of family or whatever. The point is, after this video got out there, a bunch, like a bunch of women rallied behind this girl, and they were like, "Oh, those stupid men," the like, and it became, it was the men's fault that she was not successful with this pitch that she gave, and that just came to mind because you were a male space. You were talking about how how when a man struggles in that way, he's blamed. Like he tries to maybe he tries to make an appeal or whatever to uh and if the situations were reversed and it were a similar thing where this kind of dorky guy gets up and talks says all this stuff and nobody and none of the women really respond to what he's saying because he just doesn't sound that appealing as a boyfriend, as a potential boyfriend. Then that the same people who were saying, oh, who were standing up for the redheaded girl and saying, oh, those terrible men in that room, that they would all be saying, well, look, young man, you got to just improve. I mean, you got to improve yourself. You got to give a better pitch, and it would all be on him. They wouldn't say anything like, "Oh, those terrible women, for how could they just sit there and not give you a chance?" That's just so unfair. Like there is this very ubiquitous double standard as far as that goes.
Lambert, did you see the video?
I know the video you're talking about. I didn't bother watching it.
Okay.
I think there was maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, a woman had every Tinder match meet with her in, I think, Union Square, New York City.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
Oh,
that
that one.
was,
Yes, I saw that.
That's
yes.
crazy.
Yes.
So, and I don't think she wound up dating any of them.
Yeah.
If I stand corrected, it's been a
And she
while
made
since
them
I.
like compete. She made them compete with each other,
Yes.
the worst thing was a lot of the guys did it. I mean, if it had been me, I would have said, "Screw this, I'm out of here." This isn't
Yes.
what I was expecting, but
Yes.
but a lot of the guys just stayed on and said, "Well, maybe I can be the one to get a date with this woman who must be
Right,
really worth
and that's
having a date
the
with."
crux of the problem is that there's so many thirsty men that will be willing to stay there instead of
Right.
should be some type of uh, untold code amongst men that, hey, this is no good, let's all just walk
Right.
away. But sure enough,
Just
there's always
a
going to
no
be
simp,
one guy that sticks around.
a no simp code. I mean, that's simple as that.
Right, and that's there what like, I think again because of the social media space, and I keep mentioning social media because we are more or less online more now. I mean, I my phone tells me how many times I look at my phone during the day. Granted, half of it's because of work, but everyone's just glued to their phones. You have access to anyone at any time throughout the world, and naturally, men will just gravitate to whatever's attractive and just blow up her spot. And it's
Mhm.
jarring for women to experience these things because they too are also shutting down and not necessarily socializing, just like these stay-at-home sons and incels.
Mhm.
Right. So Uh, to go back to what I said, uh, do you think it seems like what you're saying is congruent with what I'm saying? I mean, it's the breakdown of social ties and the connection to phones and dating apps and social media that has ruined some of these bonds between people. Because, I mean, I do not know the exact experience of young people right now. I'm older now, but like I'm saying, it seemed before just 2.5 decades ago, well, two or so decades ago, that people just met by happenstance. A man was somewhere, the woman was somewhere. You saw each other around. You saw each other at
Mhm.
school, at a job. Uh, you didn't necessarily have to meet, like I said, meet the people. You knew people. You went up the park, and there were loads and loads of young people at this park or other venue. So it seems like that. Are you two confirming? Do you see?
It's forced now. So if
Yes.
social media, like dating apps, it's forcing you to interact with someone. So it's not a natural ebb and flow of happenstance. You make eye contact. You chat a person up. Now it's just like if a guy is talking to a woman, oh, he wants sex. Oh,
Yes.
it's again. There's always this lingering this kind of this fog where it's always clouded
Signal.
in sex. So women don't want to make eye contact because if a guy's making eye contact, that means he finds her attractive. She's because of the phone, uh, she's already getting that type of attention from people that sometimes she's never even met. And also, just generally speaking, Americans are sexually immature.
Yes.
The pearl clutching. Andy, I love it when you talked about the sex rom-coms. I mean, that was one of your best of all time. Where I
Uh,
never even you red pilled me so hard back in the day when you were talking about rom-coms.
yeah.
Am I supposed to break out break out the KY, or am I supposed to laugh? I don't know. And it's like this movie keeps popping up on my feed. The new guy. Yeah. This summer, the new guy. It's like some derpy looking dude who's got beautiful women on him. And the movie's over 20 years old, but that's what a lot of my generation was exposed to. American Pie and
Mhm.
what was that? Saving Silverman, like movies like that, where it's like
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm confused. Is this the way people interact? Is this how I'm supposed to get laid? Everyone's having a great time. Why aren't you?
Mhm.
Come on, Andy. It's the commercials again. It's I
Mhm.
mentioned the Taco Bell commercial. My brother went ballistic, but he was mad at me about something. But he saw this stupid commercial where make it a fiesta night taco. Here is just a diverse crowd of people just hanging out, having a party. That's not real. That's not reality. Especially again when you get older, that's less and less reality because those type of parties were meant more or less with your family. Like your family get together and get wasted and eat and laugh and have a good time. You don't do that necessarily with a bunch of randos in your late 30s.
Right.
I agree with
And
what you're saying. Yeah, go ahead.
no, it's just all these things are coming at me at once. I- Speaking of myself, my and I haven't really discussed this on my show. My idea was I would have a lot of fun living in Cambodia. I would get experience. I would have sex with beautiful women. I get that experience, get it out of my system, so to speak, and kind of learn from that experience. Not so much about women, but just the overall experience living in another country, and try to carry that with me for the rest of my life. When I moved back when I was 29, my idea was okay, pedal to metal, work hard, play hard, save up money, try to get a down payment on like a cool place to live that I think women would find like, oh, that's where he lives. That's really cool. This is a beautiful apartment. This is a beautiful house. So I kind of was trying to setting myself up to live that type of life. And I kind of went monk mode for many years, especially when I first started talking to you, Andy. And
Mhm.
I figured, hey, I can buy myself some time. I'm a guy. It'll all work out one way or another. COVID hit, prices buying a home went through the roof, and I kind of just that whole my whole idea on how to build myself up kind of just faltered because I soon realized, like, well, am I doing it for myself or am I doing it to try to get laid, try to find someone, try to, uh, the house, write a really good stock portfolio, buy, drive a nice car, all that type of good stuff. Um, and even in hindsight, going 10 years ago, less than 10 years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I quickly realized that women just do not care. They're off the table. And I started like kind of like punking myself, saying, well, they must be all dykes. There must be something wrong with us. So you kind of just talk yourself out of it. And not try so much to internalize these problems that it's a you issue, which I think most millennials were this idea that bootstrapism, where it's a you problem, you got to do better, you need to put yourself out there, wear a belt, wear nice shoes. But again, there's no one really to like impress, because women see right through you. They're not making eye contact. They seem to be generally afraid. That's the other thing. I think, not that I think, I'm under the impression, and I've felt this for a while, that the overwhelming majority of women are afraid of a regular guy, because a regular guy is going to say no. The answer is no. No to Drag Time Story Hour. No to Kamala Harris. No to all these whimsical, fanciful. No to open borders. And women are afraid of that, so they will go to a guy who's always going to say yes, and will more or less have sex with a air quote alpha, who's just going to gas them up and not necessarily tell their inner, deepest, darkest thoughts, because he already knows and he's been through enough women to realize women don't necessarily like that. It's best to just keep it as superficial as possible. And women tend to like a guy who does not divulge too much about himself. Keep it as ambiguous as possible. I went on a rant there, but
I understand.
It's funny. It's funny. You're sort of. I think you're talking about New York women, like the majority of white women in the last election voted for Trump. I understand. So, like, not all. I hate to say not all women, but like,
but I would say attractive women between the ages of 20 and 40 will most likely gravitate towards voting Democrat.
mhm.
Um, if she voted Republican, or she's ad hoc tradcon, she's probably much more pragmatic about these things, and she's going to listen to her family. But again, most attractive women go to cosmopolitan locations: L.A., Chicago, Miami, New York City, so on and so forth. A woman who
Sure.
lives in rural South Carolina, she's probably got a fold or two. Um, Probably, and I'm not saying she'd be trashing stuff, but I don't. And I lived down there, Andy.
Yeah,
They're
you
not
lived
necessarily
in
as
Pittsfield.
attractive.
You you live down in the dirty South.
Not the dirty, dirty.
Yeah.
Well, okay, what I see as a huge problem here is that there is too much effort going on in women and men to find mates. For example, the obviously both of you know that I'm a big fan of the writings of Roger Devlin, because I think that he succinctly, I mean, he actually really, uh, really investigated the sexual revolution and its negative consequences. And one thing that stands out to me is that this is what happens when there is not early marriage, and also when there is not the implementation or understanding of monogamous marriage as an institution. Meaning that when monogamous marriage takes place early in life, the effort to find mates is alleviated. And then people go on to more serious endeavors such as work and child raising. This is creating an inflated competition amongst people, and it's also creating this area of life that in the past would not be, there would be no attention towards it. Meaning there would not be attention towards finding a mate. You'd already have the mate coming out of college, or let's say at least in your mid 20s. So I think that he appropriately put it that when there is not the implementation of monogamous marriage, and I don't mean you're just telling everybody that monogamy is good. That's not what I'm saying. Or what he's saying, and I think that both you understand me and him as well, is that when there's not a marriage as an institution, that this is the expectation that when a man,
Yeah.
let's say, finishes his trade or education for his education for his trade or his profession, you go to the next step, you find a mate, you're already child raising by the time you're at least before the latest before 30, and that's it. What I see now is way, way, way too much emphasis on sex and trying to get sex. I mean, I don't even, well, I know our ancestors, even our close relatives, even our grandparents, which is not too distant from us, were ever talking about how to trying to find a mate past 20 something years old. I mean, this is a very, I think, kind of almost like a maladaptive situation that we have ourselves in now. I mean, to see that I have nothing against men that are still single, men that have no woman in their later life or 30s or 40s or are trying to get a woman. I would never make fun of men to do that. However, when we have all this content of so-called red pill creators, I like to refer to them as Red Pill 2.0 because they are different from the original Pill, such as Paul Elam and Stardust and Spetsnaz and Barbarossa. The other ones, the more pickup artist oriented ones, such as, let's say, Rollo Tomasi, Richard Cooper, I do believe that they offer some things good. But to have, let's say, 40-plus-year-old men still trying to find a woman or have overemphasis on it, it's something to me has gone terribly wrong then.
Yeah, I think that, well, I would say what's gone wrong is the sexual revolution. I
Yes,
mean, it
exactly.
started with just the dethroning of monogamy. And I would say things were overall better. Of course, there were still problems, and they were different kinds of problems.
Yes.
I'm not saying anything. There's no system is perfect, but monogamy is the times when monogamy was expected, and you know and it was a scandal if anyone uh violated their vows, or a woman was considered a hussy, or a trollop, and a man was considered a cad,
Yes.
if they went outside of their marriage, and it was something that just wasn't talked about. It was considered scandalous, and it was and there was a great amount of shame attached to it, and that was good. It was
Mhm.
good to shame those kinds of behaviors. And so I think the beginning of the end was the sexual revolution, the invention of the pill in the early 60s, and then it all followed from there. And it was sort of a slow unraveling because it didn't all fall apart immediately. And in the 70s and 80s, when I was growing up, when I became sentient in the 70s and into the 80s, there were problems. There was a huge divorce rate, and that was a problem. And things had definitely loosened up in a bad way. Things that monogamy had been dethroned, to a great extent, but at the same time there was still more. It hadn't things hadn't degenerated to the point that they have now. Where it's almost just not the norm anymore, and to monogamy is not the norm, and women aren't told uh, to to marry young, or aren't even, I shouldn't say told, they aren't affirmed, that, because a lot of them, I think it's part of a biological drive. A lot of women, dream about their wedding day and want to have a lot of children, but they try to, propagandize that out of them by telling them, like like that awful woman said, I can't remember her name right now, like her whole advice to women, to young women, was date the bad boys, date the good, date the um Date
Sandberg.
the yeah, like by date, that was of course a euphemism
Mhm.
for what she really meant. Just be sexually with a lot of the cool guys, with leather jackets, like the sort of whatever the the sort of the ones that aren't that don't make good husbands, but who are sexy, quote unquote. Just be with them and sleep around a lot in your 20s, and then when you're in your 30s and you're almost past childbearing age, then find a man who'll respect you and who you won't respect. And what goes unsaid is who, in parentheses, and who you won't respect because you'll look down on him because you'll think he's beneath you and you think you deserve better. Um, and that's the sort of when you train women to be that way, in contradiction to their their natural biological traits, uh, that creates a problem. And I mean, there's a problem with men too. I'm not meaning to say the whole problem is with women, but it's just part of how things got the way they got. It's For me, it's in a sense, it's very simple. It's just two words. It's the sexual revolution.
Yes, exactly. You're 100%. I believe that you're referring to Sheryl Sandberg, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's her.
yes,
Yes.
exactly.
And both actually there were other feminists back in the day also, like Delma Hain and Barbara Seaman, who were exhorting women to commit adultery. Actually, I think it was Delma Hain who
Yeah,
said that. Delma Hain said that it was pretty much as if when you are a monogamous wife, you are kind of you're restrained. You're
right.
imprisoned. That's what she referred to it as. And this has a huge devastating effect. And when this happens, I'm going to go back to this. When we have this kind of environment, there are going to be too many womenless men under these conditions. Because as Roger
Yeah,
Devlin said, what his quote in his book really stuck out to me so much that I remembered it pretty much verbatim. I think he said that, like inflation, sexual liberation turns the market morally upside down while actively punishing the virtuous and rewarding the vicious. And that's actually what happens when we do not have these institutions anymore. That many, even decent men, I'm not going to say that every womanless man is decent, that people who abide by rules and norms, they are not going to be with someone. Because I don't want to talk too much about myself, but I noticed this though, is that when there's this breakdown of monogamy and no expectation for monogamous marriage, it creates what I would say is, pardon my language, a shitstorm in which many people have one foot in the sexual market and one foot out. Even me, when I was younger, I would say that part of the reason why that I was womanless as a young man, as I described to you before, is that even a few women who were interested in me had boyfriends. I actually went on a date with a gorgeous woman one time while she had a boyfriend, with trepidation though, because I felt that perhaps this is not the right thing to do. And I thought that maybe, if I recall, they were so-called on a break, and she went on to marry this man who she was on a break from, but she went on a date with me. I don't know what the intention was, but even women, for example, two other times when I'm the one who had the restraint. These were the women who wanted to do something, and I figured, well, if they have boyfriends, we better stop this. So it
yeah,
creates a situation where a chunk of the population is not really with someone and not really single. And then most of the women that a man meets, there's a boyfriend lurking in the background. There's an ex lurking in the background trying to get back with her. She's with someone
yeah.
but on a break. This creates what Dr. Baskerville and Devlin call sexual anarchy. So the man with principles and the man with morals, what is he going to do? I mean, my view, and I'm saying this facetiously, maybe half jokingly, that in sexual liberation, the way to get a girlfriend is to steal one. How else are you going to get the girlfriend then? Do you see what I'm
Right.
trying to say, both of you?
Yeah, I do. I
Uh,
Yeah,
do.
the guy with more again. That's who we're talking about. Is a guy that stands on his principles is not going to get laid.
so,
You have to if you can't beat them, you join them,
so
or you're just a inkwell, which is
right. But that means stealing a girlfriend, so to speak, because where are you going to find this single woman? I mean, in this situation, how many single women are there? I mean, maybe I'm the one who's biased from previous experiences, because you know how, let's say, what is it called? I'm not sure what the term is called. Is it called imprinting, where your younger years have more an impression on you than later years? Well, I mean, maybe I should not use an outdated model, but that's the way I see it. And I see that the sexual liberation has only gotten worse. So if a man wants a girlfriend, well, you have to steal one, right? I'm not encouraging that, but how else do you get the girl?
Well, you're in a happy marriage right now. Can you do you want to tell us about how did you just luck out? Are you just
Okay, I could tell some point. I don't want to get too personal here because I'm discussing this phenomenon. How I'm going. I will share some about myself though. Actually,
yeah.
I met my wife on a dating site, not a dating website. I mean, not a dating app, a dating website, in the late to wait, what it was, like 2010 or 2009. Yeah, around that. Actually, I was using the dating sites, and I'm not being a bragger here. I met a lot of women from those dating sites, not dating apps, but dating sites like Match.com, Plenty of
Yeah.
Fish, eHarmony, and there were American singles also. And actually, how I met my first girlfriend at 20, I was using AOL Singles, which became, I think that became American Singles. Yes, that was the AOL. Love AOL was the first. I think it was the first dating website, and that's the one I used. And I met a woman pretty quickly from it. So yes, I'm in a happy marriage, and I love my children. I love my in-laws too. I'm all about family now. That actually is the most important thing to me. Yes.
So do you see your own story as an exception to the rule, the exception that proves the rule?
You mean um, meeting meeting an actual single woman who was looking for a man?
Just yeah, and wanting a family and being able to have a to live the ideal monogamous married life, family life, and be able to to find something like that out of you know internet dating sites, which
I
don't
see.
have the best reputation.
I think that maybe the dating sites when I was using them back then, and what I will reveal also, and this is not a brag, because I think that bragging about sexual matters is very corny, and that's one of the reasons why I can't stand the current state of the red pill 2.0 is what I call it, because I think this is worthy of stating in this conversation that bragging about sexual exploits, I think, is very corny and distasteful. So I'm just simply divulging with truth here. I would say that I was being hedonistic when in a certain time, let's say in the mid aughts, being hedonistic myself. I'm not going to go in. So I'm not bragging about that. I'm not saying it's right. I actually wish that I did not waste time doing that. But, and I'm not the most attractive man around. So I don't know. I mean, it just happened. I don't know if I don't think I'm an exception. I mean, I still think that it's possible to have the sort of middle class monogamous life that I'm having. I think that it's definitely becoming harder and harder, though. That's the problem. Meaning, I'm 46. I cannot speak for a man who's 25 years old right now.
Yeah.
And from what I'm hearing in all these spaces, that it's becoming harder and harder. And I would say, being that my son is only 8 years old now, but I'm worried for my son's future in
Yeah.
terms of education, finance, finding a mate in the future, and my daughter as well. Both of them I have concerns about because of this kind of situation here.
Mhm.
So, I mean, does that answer your question?
I think so. Um, yeah. That you would be able to that you would use the sites to mess around, so to speak,
Yes.
whether that was whether that was what you intended to do, or whether that just sort of ended up happening, is understandable. But it's more interesting that you found, the woman that you married, and who is the mother of your children on those sites.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh, but you see, do you mind, guys? Do you mind if I go a little more personal for the time being to add to the
oh,
conversation, or you want to move on to another topic? I'll only divulge with what is pertinent to the year. Do you guys mind?
no.
Okay. Uh, you see, my cousin also met his wife from there. I have a friend who met his wife. I might say there, I mean the dating websites. I have a friend who's on his second wife from a dating app. I think it was Bumble. A second a second friend met his second wife from Bumble, and my cousin met her husband from, of all places, uh, what was the first one? Tinder. Yes, but Tinder in the early days. So I don't know if my friends are exceptions. I'm not sure, but I'm going to say though for my cousin, my female cousin, that we're talking about a person who is of high status and her husband is of high status. So maybe they're just in a different league. My female cousin works for a company that people use every single day. Uh, People use it a lot actually, and her husband is a film director. So, you know, there's that. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? That they're in a different league of their own. So people like that are not going to have a problem in real life. Well, quote real life or online. But I believe also that probably my friends, and again, I'm not trying to brag about my friends as if I have such cool friends, but I do have friends that are not, let's say, not the 10% top 10%. My male cousin either, but I would say that most of them are socially savvy, like typically like New Yorker socially savvy people. Maybe that's an edge too. I'm just thinking.
Same as Lamprey Milt, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
you know it.
yes. I
Big
would
Friday nights with
yes.
you guys.
Right, because I believe that I'm going to add to this because I think the reason why this hits home with me because I'm going to divulge here more, and it's not a pity party, but I trust. Well, I'm going public. I'm not going to just say I trust both of you. I'm speaking from the heart here because that's what I want my channel to partly be about to connect with other men that I'm concerned about generally. Is that my problem personally, and this is my personal story, is that above anything that got in my way, even in high school, from even attracting women that were attracted to me, was a serious depression at a young age, including suicidal ideation, and an extremely tumultuous household, a tumultuous
Right.
fatherless household. So if you put all those together and you go to a very socioeconomically diverse high school of, I think back then it was about 3,000 plus students, almost nearing 4,000 students, and I think that I had 980 students in my graduating class. You put a boy like that who was unsure of himself, and you have all these different people from all different neighborhoods who some of them have different ways of being and ways of doing things, and some of them are devious and some of them are violent. I don't think that, and some of them actually are coming from rich parents also. You get a lower middle class boy who has low self esteem. I was already lifting. I was already in good shape. I think I was an okay looking kid. Some women, even women, one woman belatedly actually, when I was 19 or 20, said, I met her at a friend's house actually. She said, I remember you're from high school. I said, you remember me? I'm thinking to myself, me of all people, I thought I was garbage. You know what I'm saying? And she says, no, I used to watch you. You used to walk up and down the boulevard when you were going to and from school. I know who you are. And I actually went on a few dates with her actually. So that shows that my personal problem was that it was the uh, uh, lack of faith in myself. That's been my only
Mhm.
problem. My only problem for being a so-called previous incel was uh, lack of faith in myself. So I don't see any other problem. Money, physique. I mean, I went on to compete in bodybuilding later in life, just once, but I'm still a gym rat. Nothing else with me. I know what my problem was, though, me personally. But now men are going through other problems, not just a matter of life skills. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I thought I wonder if just this might take things in a radical direction, um, a radically different direction. But I've heard it alleged that more young men are that there's an incel to tranny pipeline uh, for some
Yes,
young
there
men.
is.
That some young men just decide to go that route. I mean that's something that would never it would never appeal to me.
You're gonna
I
see more of it. You're gonna
uh-huh.
see more of it
But
Well,
because all it shows you that is that men are better at being women.
what I what
and
I what I
go
think
ahead.
here what I think here also is that I think that the desperation that occurs from living in an atomized society with broken families and lack of a mate, lack of a woman, leads to desperate measures. Not just desperate measures, what you're
Right.
talking about, let's say, or an extreme measure. What do we want to say? However, we want to describe it, it
Yeah.
does lead to antisocial behavior. And I do believe that some of what men do, even the antisocial behavior they engage in, not becoming a transsexual, other behaviors such as being violent, being antisocial, also that stem from that because that's actually a very see my view is also just simply as a young man being antisocial, being aggressive, being vicious is pretty much a shortcut to getting women. I know that sounds bad,
Right.
but that's what I believe because I
For
believe that
sure.
because, and again, I did not grow up poor, but I grew up in the lower middle class, and I would say that, yeah, growing up in the lower middle class of Queens, yeah, that's who got the women mostly, actually, not all, but yeah, gives one an edge. And yeah, so I see.
I will, yeah, what you're saying is I'm sure true. But for young men today, Gen Z men or men who are just coming of age, I heard this from a couple different sources. I heard this from a woman actually, first, that you know that that she was, this was a woman who I thought was generally sensitive or uh I don't know, sympathetic to incel types, but but she was saying she was getting less sympathetic because she was aware that a lot of them were going the transsexual route, and and that was, leading to all that that leads to all kinds of societal, I mean, it's just one more step on the sexual revolution. It's just one more rung down the the circle to the deepest depths of hell that our society is
Oh,
becoming.
you're gonna see 20-year-olds dating 70-year-olds soon. I'm telling it's coming probably in the next 4 to 5 years. Because that's how
70,
bad the
70 year old
situation is. Yeah,
70 year old.
Okay,
you're gonna start seeing some wacky shit in the next in the coming decade as far as men women relations.
well,
100%, it's
yes.
gonna happen. Because again, the prime your prime women are not having sex, and if they are having sex, it's with a very small group of men. Those men use and abuse them. Think of it: if the high school quarterback has now access to all the women in the high school. Okay, he's gonna burn through them all, treat them like garbage, ghost them, right? And those women
Yeah,
carry that animosity onto the next
yeah,
guy. And every normal guy is going to be turned off by them because of a high body count, their attitude. Um,
yeah,
there, so these guys, I'm using high school as an example because I'm starting to realize that just we never left high school. So the high school quarterback, he now has access to all the women in the school via social media, right? Now
mhm,
these women would never talk to him like in the hallway because she's insecure. She knows that he's better, but now he can DM her on the side saying, "Yo, come over my place. Come chill with me, right?" And then
yeah,
pretend like she doesn't exist going in the hallway in between classes.
yeah,
That's basically what's happening now as in the country as a whole. Is that the high school quarterback? I'm using the high school quarterback as an example. It could be the bad boy. It could be the drug dealer. That's who has access to little Nancy or Betsy, right? And she's like she's innocent, she's naive, she doesn't know any better, and she just gets plowed through by these guys. And meanwhile, the guy who's Poindexter, who's minding his own business, making models of I don't know, model tanks from World War II and playing video games. He has no, he's not really going to entertain this woman, right? Because he already
mm,
knows that she's banging this guy. She's going to be used goods. She's going to carry the weight of the previous relationship or whatever guy she was screwing onto the next guy. Who wants to deal with that? Men don't want a headache. That's
yeah,
the other thing. Be pleasant. Don't bring more problems to my life that I already have. Right? And
yeah.
women don't have the same problems as guys do, and men don't understand what guys' problems really are, nor do they actually care. Men, on the other hand, are quite aware of what women's problems are. Sometimes we ignore it. She wants to have a child. She wants a stable relationship. But the guy's thinking long term. Well, she can divorce rate me. She can take my kids. She can take all my stuff. Am I going to uproot my life and change my everything that I'm doing right now to placate and to pander to a woman who I think in the long run will not appreciate me?
Yeah. Yeah, that's unfortunately the way things go. And like, if I can get topical here for a moment, we found out, if you believe the official story, which I'm actually tending to at this point, but concerning the murder of Charlie Kirk in Orem, Utah, the story that's been all over the news in the last week and a half or so. The the shooter is apparently a young man who grew up normal, quote unquote, but for reasons unknown, maybe he was one of these quote unquote incels. Maybe he struggled with women for the reasons that, or with girls for the reasons that we've talked about. I'm talking about the alleged shooter, Tyler Robinson. It's of course he grew growing up in a Mormon environment in Utah, very conservative area. And then more recently, apparently, he chose to become, or maybe didn't. Who knows whether it was choice or not, or if it was if it was his actual inclination. But the way that I've heard it talked about, suddenly clicked in my mind. The things that this woman was telling me about the incel to tranny pipeline. It's like that all makes sense with somebody like Tyler Robinson.
Yeah.
Because he's a normal looking kid, but apparently was radicalized and became got into a relationship with another young man, but who's someone who's transitioning, and became, got sucked into this weird, perverse, trans furry scene with a bunch of other, young men who are malcontents, who are castaways from, I guess, the whole Mormon, the Mormon establishment, or the Mormon way of looking at things. So these are a bunch of angry ex-Mormons, and they embrace this, the far reaches of the LGBT stuff to like, even I don't know how much you guys know about furries, or have heard about furries, but apparently that's a part of this whole scene. His boyfriend, Tyler Robinson's boyfriend, was apparently, into dressing like animals, and he's transitioning and stuff. And so that, this whole, and admittedly there's a lot of dots that I'm connecting that I don't know whether it's appropriate to connect or not. But if I'm correct, if this is a case of a guy who went from a frustrated young man because of all the problems with women, meeting women today, in our current zeitgeist, our current cultural situation, if he then was radicalized and gravitated towards this trans thing and became lovers with another man who was transitioning to becoming a woman, and got radicalized even to the point of, thinking, oh, there's this conservative Christian, this Charlie Kirk character coming through campus. I'm going to try to shoot him dead and be a hero to the trans community because he's anti-trans, and so now, I mean, again, we see, if I'm right, and I mean, there's a lot of, I don't know the whole story, but if I'm right, then we're seeing a lot of the chickens coming home to roost with the sexual revolution. If the sexual revolution had never happened, maybe a kid like Tyler Robinson would have just not had trouble finding a girlfriend, and he would have been fine, and would have married young and had kids, and been a happy part of the of the Utah Mormon community, but that's not the way his life went. And so I don't know. I don't know. What do y'all think? Am I just um I don't know. Could I be right about this? What do y'all think?
Lamprey, do you want to go first?
I think you're 100% right. I think we're making more out of this Charlie Kirk thing than we should. It's how do I put this? The whole Troon situation. If the overriding majority, and this circles back to what I was saying earlier, if the overriding majority of like piss and vinegar young men have no sexual outlet, and there's men who are disturbed one way or another, who think becoming trans is the best path forward because they see how easy women have it. That's what's going to happen. These guys are going to gravitate towards transgenders because a guy knows a guy better than a woman knows a guy, and women don't necessarily even know themselves. So if there's someone willing to give them attention and touch their pepe, th- and they want to keep it on the DL, and this Tyler Robinson's lashing out at society saying you're not accepting my transgender girlfriend, and Charlie Kirk is the embodiment of this animosity towards homosexuals and transgenders. This is kind of where things are leading to, where we're being forced now through violence to accept a small segment of the population yet growing.
Yes, I see both your points, and I'm Andy. I see there's validity. There's validity to what both of you were saying, and Andy, as you and I discussed, it's probably pretty well known for people who investigate these topics, is that a polygamous society usually tends to have antisocial young men. So I'm not surprised that
Well,
there's
that's true. That's true. The whole
Well,
yes.
we already know black males gravitate towards homosexuality and transgenders. One of my favorite artists, Teddy Pendergrass. Andy, you know who Teddy Pendergrass is?
Yes, I
The
know who he is.
musician. You remember what happened to him?
No, I don't know what happened
He
to him.
became a quadriplegic because he was getting dome from his transgender girlfriend.
Well, yes, I mean that.
He crashed a car. He crashed a car with his transgender
Oh,
girlfriend.
oh wow. Okay.
We see what today I see at this is that we have a pseudo polygamous society, and polygamous societies have a lot of
Hmm.
problems. I think that the reason why polygamy was outlawed in the West is because it does result. I mean, I'm talking about organized polygamy here. I'm talking about organized
Yeah.
polygamy was discontinued, outlawed because of the kind of violence that erupts in society, the nepotism, the tyranny, and the kind of actually in organized polygamy, these feuding clans, where
Mhm.
you have this monopolization of social capital and financial capital within these clans, and pretty much outside of them, the ordinary man is well, I don't know, no one. So, but now
Right.
we don't even have an organized polygamy, meaning that we have this polygamy where no one really knows who's belonging to who. Like I said before, someone could meet a woman and they don't really
Yeah.
know who's the guy that she belongs to. You know, it's very hard to navigate this. And I could see that if we had, let's say, most of the population being monogamous, and let's say there was, let's say, a little bit of polygamy or concubinage allowed at the top, well, at least we would know who belongs to who, and the majority of the population would be with one person. That I could deal with. But right now, we have no idea who's with who. The word relationship means, I don't even know how you define it. Situationship, so called seeing people, talking to people. All
Right.
these are, like you said in our first talk, Andy, all these are malleable. So of
Right.
course, people are going to be miserable. There's going to be a great deal of misery and a great deal of mental disorders. And also, if you couple that, like I've been saying to rewind a moment, this is the symptom of a broken society. If you have no mate, if you have a broken home, if you have a society in which the older men do not mentor the younger men or simply just don't even care about them, well, we're going to have a lot of problems. And going forward, we're going to have just as much uh, outrageous happenings that we're talking about. how do you two see this? And also, I want to, well, how do you both see what I'm saying? And I'll ask you another question after.
It's definitely not a recipe for social cohesion. So yeah, I mean, I could see a lot of problems arising, not including but not limited to violence. Um, um, and of course, like that raises the question for me: if if the sexual revolution, like I doubt that everybody, I doubt that in the early '60s there weren't people who were instrumental in getting the sexual revolution started who didn't also know that this was going to screw up society, that was maybe the whole idea of it. And
Yeah,
that's
they
what
knew there was so many.
Yes.
After World War II, there were so many of these experiments done, and
yeah
there was such a monster learning curve coming out of World War II about these things. You know, the greatest minds on how to defeat Japan or defeat Germany, and vice versa. Japan, Germany fighting the Allies. They learned so much about. Um, just how humans interact and how do they handle under certain stresses and stuff. And there's so many all the different foundations. There's some great documentaries and scientific experiments that are probably still on YouTube, if not buried in the algorithms. Ford Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, that have
yeah
done all these social experiments. A lot of them, I think, many of our listeners probably are fully aware of. And they just took that information and weaponized it against the populace.
yeah it does look that way. I think a lot of I mean, and I think that a lot of people people naively believed the promises of the sexual revolution, that it would actually make people happier, that
I thought that.
oh
Yes.
well
Yeah, for
now we can
boomers.
yeah well now we can be with whoever we want to be with whenever we want to be with them, and so there won't be these rigid rules like monogamy that keep people away from each other that they want to be with, and we could it's just going to be more kind and compassionate, and it was the very opposite of that. The kindest thing for people, for men and women alike, was monogamy. And when the monogamy got eroded, uh chaos was introduced, and nobody was happier. I think the only people who maybe are happier are high status men, because they're the ones who get the most out of this current
Yes.
arrangement. But I think even for them, I think there's probably a point at which you have sex with a bunch of different women, and it's great, and for a long time. But I would imagine that even for them at some point, it's like, is that like that Broadway song, is that all there is? It has got to occur to you at some point, that this is the essential emptiness of that hedonistic lifestyle. But but for the rest of us, I think, including women, because women are used and thrown away by the high status men that they are most attracted to, and then they grow to hate men in general, because they grow to think that the men who they were attracted to, who ghosted them and used them, and threw them, kicked them to the curb and moved on to someone else, they tend to think all men are like that, and they
Right.
don't even consider the 80% of the population, maybe more than 80% of the male population, that isn't like that, because they have no ability to be like that, because they're not as high status. Um,
The
so women are
quarterback.
Yes.
yeah, so women are miserable. Most men, are miserable for the reasons we've talked about. But maybe the high status men, make out like gangbusters for a little while, but even for them, I think it rots one's soul to live that way, and it's ultimately spiritually not good for anyone.
Yes. And it's certainly not good for children either. If we're going to have these sorts of
No,
arrangements where that
not good for families.
yes, all sorts of arrangements where everything is broken. Families are broken. I don't know who belongs to who. Uh, and also, you will see, as Dr. Baskerville spoke to me and Lamprey about, and also as he discussed in my first video with him, is that in the sexual revolution, there's this kind of switcheroo that takes place, meaning that the freedom is granted to people, all sorts of freedoms, and that with the freedoms comes, as Dr. Baskerville said, corollary punishments. So you get people to play this game, and then they're hit with punishments. And many famous and wealthy men are hit with punishments of all
Mhm.
sorts of allegations that
Yeah,
I don't know that some of them actually exceed the. I would expect that. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know every law, if this is even possible. I would expect that decades later would be past the statute of limitations, or I don't know how you prove these things beyond words. So you could see that this even backfires on so-called Chads also, and even
yeah,
college men who partake in this sort of hedonism, and they get hit with false accusations after the
right.
deed. So I don't know who wins in this. It seems that this is affecting all of society in a negative way,
Yeah,
no matter what status someone is. So-called Chad, so-called normie, so-called womanless man, whatever it is. But my view is this, though, is that, and this will take us to a different subtopic. I think that with the sexual revolution and the industrial revolution, that there came to be what we call dating. And I actually have this, I guess, archaic belief, considering that dating is only about, I guess, 120 years old, that dating, unsupervised dating, where there's just completely no rhyme or reason to it, and no family involvement, and no parental approval, has led to a disaster also. But you see, when I've spoken to some people about this, that if we went to, let's say, the designations of the past, and they're actually not that old, if we went back to only three designations, actually single, and when I say single, I mean single for real, or
yeah,
two in courtship, or three marriage. That's it. No relationship, no boyfriend and girlfriend, no dating anymore. See, that's the institution of marriage, and I believe there's literally no way out of this except for uh, except for that. But we're not going to do that anytime soon, though. And everybody would probably, most people would call me a tradcon, even though I'm not a tradcon. But if you bring up these institutions that actually worked moderately well, and you just simply abolished so-called dating, I think that even men who would benefit from this sort of old way wouldn't want it either. I think that some men, even if they are womanless, they are angry that they cannot partake in the hedonism. That if we went back to the
yeah.
rigid way, oh, that would spoil everybody's fun, and it would also spoil everybody's chance of having fun. What do you two think of that?
Huh. Well, yeah, it's funny to think that even the men who are, I mean, funny in a sort of bitter sort of way, to think that even the men who are struggling the most under the current circumstances would still pine for the getting to have the hedonistic lifestyle of Wilt Chamberlain, or somebody like that. You know,
Yes. Now,
uh,
but you see, I've mentioned that to people sometimes, and Lamprey, I want your input on this also, is that when I've mentioned that before also, that maybe there would be, let's say, more of matchmaking. And I don't, when I say arranged marriage, I don't mean arranged marriage where, you get a stranger to marry another stranger because of, let's say, political or financial reasons. I mean matchmaking, meaning that, it's kind of softly arranged, like someone knows a good fit for someone else. You kind of do a matchmaking thing. It doesn't work after a few meetings. Okay, you move on. We'll find someone else for you. And also fatherly approval, actually. When I mention these things in conversations, people actually think that this is almost they respond as if this is a wicked idea, and these were ideas that pretty much were the standard for most of human history, including the West. Why is this met with such opposition? I mean, Andy, you're a parent. I'm a father too. I can tell who is I can tell a bad man within 1 hour of talking to him. Sometimes by even looking at him, I can tell. So I would know that this guy who's only intending to use my daughter, I would already know how it's going to pan out. I mean,
yeah.
maybe not at 100% accuracy, but why is this met with such resistance? If it's going to be uh, with a good result, though. I would expect that people want good results in society, don't they?
They don't want their fun taken away.
There's no fun, but people would actually. You're right. I mean, but people would be able to find a mate, though. I mean,
Because it
that's
affects them in that whatever they constitute as freedom. Because
so.
think of it this way: people are more economically free in, let's say, communist regimes, but they're socially not free. In the U.S., it's the opposite. I'm paraphrasing because technically we're not, but the idea is that okay, you can be a troon, but you're making minimum wage at Starbucks, so you can have your septum pierced and have a bunch of Born to Lose tattoos. Um, that gives you freedom. Your individualism is free, so you're free to be whatever you want. You're free to go and I don't know peg your boyfriend, but at the same token, you're not economically free. Uh, so your corporation's kind of like this setup. So because it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to pay this person because they're having a family.
I mean, it's sort of like your question. If I generalize it a little more, it becomes something along the lines of why do people reject uh solutions? Why do people
Yes.
reject things that would actually be solutions to their
Yeah.
problems?
It's a
Yeah.
Why,
sacrifice.
yeah, why do obese people reject um the idea of going on a diet? Why do 5 pack a day smokers reject the idea of cutting down on smoking? I mean, these are more mundane kinds of questions, but it's similar. It's sort of it is kind of rooted in addiction. It's rooted in what we're used to and what we want and what's comfortable for us, even if it's not good for us, and like choosing actually to change is something I've found. It's something that comes really hard to people. And I don't know how many people I tend to find stories of people who actually change, like real conversion stories, like in the New Testament, Saul becoming Paul, Saul seeing the image of Jesus, and up to that point he had been persecuting Christians, and then Jesus appears in front of him and says, "Why are you persecuting me?" And he goes, it's such a overwhelming thing. He goes blind for a few days, and then afterwards is completely changed and becomes the one of the biggest, most staunchly uh, loyal of the apostles. That's a story of a man actually changing, and it's stands out because it's unusual. Because most of the time, change comes hard because uh, we don't want to change. We want to we want our lives to get better, but we don't want to um, we just want things to come easier to us, you know, rather than it's another thing. Oh well, if we actually do this and this as a society, we will be happier. Why don't we do this and this as a society? Or why don't you as an individual decide to not live this way and to not prioritize these things, but to live in a way that's emotionally and psychologically and spiritually healthier. And you know it's hard to get people to change. You can't make people change. It has to come from them. They have to want it. um I guess unless you're going to impose it from above, which is what would happen if there was an actual revolution, like an actual cultural revolution where uh the the far right won out and decided to just start. I don't know if like something like the Taliban took over, the Christian version of the Taliban took over in the West. Then you would have change happening from above and people just being coerced into changing because their lives depend on it. But yeah, that's my answer.
Right. So this leaves us in kind of like, let's say, a stranglehold, because if we're going to be left with telling individual men to, quote, improve and just lift and earn ever increasing amounts of money and to be interesting and to be thrilling, well, that's not going to work, and it isn't working, and it's not going to work. And
Yeah.
secondly, if we do not have the implementation of social norms and certain customs and rituals that guides people together, and I'm talking about guiding people together, I'm not talking about something bad, I'm talking about guiding people to find spouses. Well, the divorce industry is something else to talk about also, but let's say we did have a normal institution of marriage, and let's say we did not have the divorce regime upon us. That wouldn't be something to fear, actually.
Mhm.
This would be the only pro-social way out of it, because focusing on the individual man to become a rock star is not going to happen. And uh, so then we were at a standstill. So then we can't do the implementation of monogamous marriage. And also, we're just going to continue down this path going nowhere. Uh, Lamprey, what?
It's got to be a club. It has to be, there has to be guidelines if you want to start implementing these things without having it being forced from above. And that's where a lot of religious institutions fail, and, and fails putting it nicely. You'd have to be like, oh, okay, so you want a job here, you want to date my daughter. Well, you have to go to this church. You can't do X, Y, and Z. So you have to have these type of these in type of enforcements. You have to ostracize certain individuals when they break certain codes and certain edicts. There are churches that still abide by these rules, but they're far and few in between. It tends to be in much more rural locations in the United States. Obviously, we're talking about Mormons, the Amish, the Mennonites, so on and so forth. But for the secularized middle class, it's bleak and it's black pilling.
Yes, it's one giant circus with a lot of bad things in this circus. So I guess I'm just doing
Clown
this.
world.
Yes. So I
Clown
guess,
world.
yeah, yes, it's an appropriate term. I guess I'm just putting these ideas out there. If people want to have these ideas germinate for the coming decades, probably not anytime soon. I just don't see any other way out of it. So uh, where I'm,
Well,
uh,
this podcast will this thing we're doing, right, this discussion we're having now will definitely reverberate throughout the coming decades and centuries. I'm pretty sure.
I believe there's people are going to come to this conclusion one way or the other. I don't see how people are going to put up with this. I mean,
Right.
I don't see another way out of it. And I think that if you wrote also in your book, Ruminations of a Low Status Male, that enforced monogamy there is the only way out of it. And I'm not saying it from, let's say, even like, let's say, a religious point of view, just simply by a practical view. I don't see a way out of it.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. So, but also, Lamprey, and I want to ask you both, because I don't spend most of my time when I'm listening to male focused content. I do not listen to much. I don't like the term, but I'm going to use it because it's the terms that are being used. Black pill and incel content. I usually I've listened to some of it, but I do not choose to listen to it when I'm listening to other male focused content.
Mhm.
Do most of these men, or maybe you're more familiar with them than I am, do they even want to get married? I mean, I would ask,
No.
like, okay, so what do they want then?
Everything just as much as fucking women want. Sorry, I cursed, but
Right.
yes, yeah, it's like, okay, you got a girlfriend now. Guess what? She wants attention. Oh, you don't want to give her attention. Well, it takes two to tango.
Yeah, but what I mean by that is, okay, so they don't want children, they don't want marriage. They want what I
They
call
talk. They again. I'm not saying I'm painting a broad brush here, but like take me for example. If I got into a serious relationship, and again, do I really want her over my place? Eh, because I got the books, I got the podcast going. The kitchen's a mess, so I'd have to clean up my act, so to speak, to start actually getting serious with a woman. And for a lot of guys, the older they get, the less they want to do these things. So the older you get, the more you're stuck in your own ways, and women are no different for that matter.
right. I mean,
You're
but
I will just sorry to interrupt, but you're asking what is it that makes black-pilled guys be black-pilled or continue on with being black-pilled?
no, I
Is
know,
that what you're asking?
I know the black pill, so to speak. I know the black pill story, and I'm not going to deny that the truths they tell are true. So that sounded kind of funny, actually. What they say is true. I accept the truth.
Mhm.
I understand they reveal some truths. I'm not going to not deny that. What I
Right.
wonder is, it seems as if the men who do have a problem with this bizarre situation we find in it, some of them, I'm not criticizing them per se. It almost seems as if some of them don't know what they want themselves.
Right.
What do
Yeah,
they want?
100%.
Well, then
Um,
go ahead.
well, I think what they would say that they want is to have a girlfriend, right? Isn't that what they would say?
I
Or to get to have sex, to get to be sexually successful. I mean, I would think that that's what they would say that they want, but they can't be. That's what makes them incels because they can't
yes,
get
yeah,
what they can't get that, and they just become like they just become very enamored and smitten with their own nihilism and smug about it in a lot of ways. This is my experience with a lot of a lot of the people in this group. A lot of them really are, and I'm sympathetic
yes,
to them, but a lot of them really are, somewhat difficult to deal with. Somewhat insufferable because because of their they've embraced the black pill because of their relentless pessimism. That they they're not like, and that they construe any idea of trying to get out of this situation that they're in that makes them so miserable. Like, and any advice is that they say, oh, so you're telling me to just go lift, bro, right? Is that what you're telling me? Like they're just immediately sarcastic, and like there's no like there's no solution, and we're just going to be miserable, and the misery is forever. And I don't know, like I don't think it's that they don't know what they want. Like I don't I mean maybe you could explain that a little bit more to me. But my impression is that if you ask them what they wanted, they would say a lot of them would say, well, I just want to be able to be sexually successful. I want to have sex with women, and some of them would say, I want a girlfriend, and I want I want to eventually get married and have children. Um, but they would all say, or almost, or a whole lot of them would say, I mean, it's the part of the state of being black pilled is just to say there's no solution to anything. It's just going to, for someone like me, I'm just going to be, uh, you know, um, forever alone. And and so they a lot of them really do, like I'm sympathetic to them, and I don't uh I hate how they get treated by society, but for a lot of the real hardcore, black pilled incels who go on incel forums and stuff, it's sort of like they have these, like, you go onto these forums and they have these things like suicide fuel, like a section that says suicide fuel, and then you click on that section. It's like things that make you want to kill yourself, and like why do you want to go why do you want to get on a website and just read about why more reasons to be miserable? Like, why? How is that helping anything? How is that helping you? How is that helping anyone? I don't get it. I rejected the black pill very vehemently. Um, as soon as like maybe it was five, 6, 7 years ago when I first started hearing, people like when I first became familiar with the black pill. It just became clear to me that it was poisonous, and I say that as somebody who is definitely has a melancholic, pessimistic sort of spirit himself. So I'm not like Mr. Optimism. I'm not that way at all. But I am aware that you can't just stay in that state of mind. You've got to do something to fight it.
Yes, I agree, because I mean, I know some of this. I've consumed some of it out of, let's say, a kind of a concern, and also from my past. I told you about my own problems here. I've even discussed it with you in the other episode that we have in here. So I do have sympathy for them, but again, some of this becomes, a little. It's not a humorous situation. It is not a humorous situation at all. It's a depressing situation to be womanless and to have this amount of womanlessness in society. But I've been exposed to some of it. For example, that website called Nowicki, where they have all the pretty much everything to do with the black pill is pretty much in that on that site, and collated on that site, and they have
Yeah,
the subs the let's say the different kinds of incel: mental cell, vol cell, true cell.
yeah,
And after
yeah,
a while it becomes kind of entertaining, even for someone, whether you're
yeah,
sympathetic or not. It's kind of crafty, some of these terms, and
yes,
a lot of the information there, again, it's true, but sometimes when I have, let's say, consumed some of it out of curiosity, some of them, and I don't want to slander anybody, it's not my intention to do that, is that some of them, I will not name them, seem to, they're, when I ask that question, what do they want? It seems as if they don't know, because many of them poke fun at married men. They poke fun at marriage. They poke fun at
yeah,
wives. They talk about the drudgery of kids. Everybody who has a kid is a sucker. Husbands are suckers. Men who go to
mm,
the gym are going to the gym for no reason, because women do not care about the gym. So basically, everybody's up for criticism. Everybody's up for scorn and
yeah,
uh, ridicule. So what wouldn't that lead to confusion if someone's listening to that? Someone would reasonably ask them, then what do you want then? Who do you like?
yeah. I see what you're saying now. Um,
Yes.
that's definitely a part of the scene as I have glimpsed it as well. Uh,
Well, you're talking about guys that just have nothing else going for them, so they get lost in these rabbit holes and these echo chambers, and they're not bettering themselves in their own personal life, whether they get a job or an education and stuff. So it's easy to fall into these pits because it's easy to slander. You get more views when it it's an attention thing for a guy. So who can ever say the most outrageous things in the black pill, kind of these Discord servers and Telegram groups, whatever. It doesn't, even YouTube channel comment section. It's just this. It's the doom spiral. So it's very hard to talk them out of these type of things, and they don't necessarily have any solid role models. They never really in and when I mean role models, it doesn't necessarily have to be a father, grandfather, or uncle. It could be someone you would admire or idolize in your in your childhood or in your teen years. They just never had that one person like, wow, that guy's amazing. Look what he's able to accomplish. Look what he's able to achieve. So they never look at someone and strive for excellence. They tend to just put down, shut down, and kind of just revel in it.
And it's like, you know, there's a cliche about the bucket of crabs, of course, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that you're familiar with.
Crab bucket mindset. Yep.
Yeah, it's the crab bucket mindset. Like when I first became familiar with these forums, I thought that when somebody, you know, they have a term called ascend, where if one of these um, incels actually finds a girlfriend and is in a relationship, he's said to have ascended, quote
Who
unquote.
was that guy you
And
interviewed? Blue Monday. What was his name? Remember that
yeah,
guy?
yeah,
I
yeah,
remember. Yes.
That's a
yeah,
good
yeah,
example.
yeah. No, he was he was a very interesting guy. He's not really, he sort of uh quit the whole public scene for some reason, but yeah, it was I enjoyed talking to him. Anyway, when they talk about ascend, when somebody ascends, you would think that these guys would be like, "Hey, way to go, congratulations," but they're not like that. They're like, when someone ascends, it's like, "Oh, well, you're not really one of us. You're a fake cell. You were never really one of us," and they hate on that person. Uh, and it's almost like it's this weird kind of doom purity spiral where you know, if you and again, you would think that the use of these kinds of forums would be these guys who are in the same boat helping each other out, and that they would you know, they would like it when one of their friends ascends, and because that's the whole idea, that's where they want to be, you know, that's what they all want to do on some level, but instead that like like it's the crab bucket mentality. It's like they want their own uh I don't know if I could call them friend. I don't know if they even see each other as friends or what, but they want their own comrades to fail uh
And
because
people that
other
they've never even met, mind you. It's all
yeah, I know.
online.
I know, but there's just there's no goodwill. There's no, like, that's what I find most depressing, most insufferable about it is it's just it's all it's just like it's just a poison pill. It's just
And I think that's what
completely
separates MGTOW from a lot of these guys, because at least guys
right.
who consume MGTOW content don't have these views and seem to
No,
be much more upbeat about life.
MGTOW is about, yeah, MGTOW is very upbeat. It's MGTOW is about, you know, we're uh you know, we're not putting women on a pedestal anymore, and we're living our best lives. You know, and it is, you know, and there is much more goodwill among MGTOW guys for sure towards each other, and like they see each other as a community.
Right.
Uh, and but among these like the black pilled crowd,
They're all
it's just
very young. They're all in their 20s too. A lot of
yeah,
the people that consume incel black pill content. You don't really see that amongst guys in their 30s and 40s, because they're
yeah,
more they're on a different level of acceptance. Like the guy Raymond, who I like a lot. You can see he's in the early stages of these things, and he's still kind of playing all these concepts out in his mind in real time, which is it's interesting and fascinating to hear a lot of his talking points, because I too had he's kind of echoing a lot of things that I had discussed with you, Andy. Again, almost a decade ago.
yeah, no doubt, yeah,
Yes. I had a discussion with Raymond also. The title of the discussion was "Fatherhood as a Social Construct." I have it on my channel, and he has the other it on his channel as well. So now I want to ask you a question though. It's actually about a statement though. I mean, to get this on, to rewind a little bit, actually, and I thank you for your input on that on the Black Pill and the MGTOW, is that in the book Sexual Utopia and Power by Roger Devlin, I have it right here over here on my desk, I mean my table here, is that he said that if I recall correctly, he said no serious society tolerates casual sex. Now, it seems like this is what everybody wants, but there has been a very negative effect of it, right? So, is MGTOW is MGTOW a proponent of that?
Proponent to what? Rephrase that.
Casual sex. I mean, is that part of the MGTOW lifestyle, or is it just simply because
Yeah, it's whatever, whatever, anything that flies on anything that moves. There's different levels of MGTOW, the going monk and stuff. I'm, as Steve Hooker would say, I'm one blowjob back to onto the plantation, and he's 100% right. I mean, if someone were to take a liking to me and I like them back, of course I'm gonna, start dating someone. But I think MGTOW is more or less just seeing a lot of the social ills as we're kind of fleshing out tonight and trying to navigate those problems and not necessarily get stuck in these rabbit holes like a lot of young people are with black pill incel content.
I see. Because I mean,
Yeah.
perhaps I'm being hypocritical because I indulged myself when I was using those websites, as I said before. But again, I'm going to push back here a little bit, and maybe I'm doing this maybe not in the most eloquent or orderly way. Is there a way out of this besides what uh, I propose? What Dr. Daniel Amneas said in his book, The Case for Father Custody, what he called sexual law and order. Is there a way out of this? I mean, or are we just not me personally right now, but are men, even the men who can get this, are they feeding the beast by indulging also? I mean, let's say enjoying the decline, so to speak. I think it was Aaron Clary who said that.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Um, yeah. Yeah. Well, so you're saying you're saying you're criticizing the kind of MGTOW who would go around, who would screw around,
Well, I don't
and
know. I don't know if I'm criticizing per se, but I just don't. I keep on hammering home the same point, and maybe I'm being a little. I don't know. It may be a little obnoxious. Maybe some people who listen to this might be find it obnoxious. Is that I don't see. Do you two see a way out of this besides what I proposed? Going back to the more rigid old way.
Well, to
no.
get back to the rigid old way would have to have some type of revolution. Go on, Andy. I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, I don't see a way out of it except a return to pre-sexual revolution mores. But what's going to get us there? I don't know. I don't have a blueprint. Um, I think we have to do our best. We have to ride the tiger, as the saying
Right.
goes, in the
I see.
Kali Yuga. Um, and we have to do our best, and we have to evangelize for what uh, uh, the way, the ills that we see in society, and exhort people to change their ways, and I don't know, do what we can. But ultimately, that like there's only so much that any one of us can do, and I would say you'd have to turn over the rest to faith if you're a faithful person. If you believe in God, if you believe in providence, you just at some point just shrug and say, well, I'll do what I can, and I'll let you do the rest, God. And that's the only way to be.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, one can only fashion their own family. Also, I mean, I guess I would say to I guess my goal is to, uh, you know, give the appropriate social education to my children and do my best and associate with other families that think the way that my family thinks. Like, for example, my we homeschool our children, so we know other homeschooling families, and some of them are religious. So I would say that for me personally, the only way to do that, to do this for my own family would be that way, who I associate with and the values I imbue in my children. I'm trying to spread the word. I have a very, very, very small channel at the time, so maybe my message will get bigger. I'm not sure, but I guess you're right. That's all we can do, actually. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to get your input on that, actually. But I think that these are conversations that should take place. That's why I'm doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lamprey, do you have anything to add to that?
No, it was a great chat.
Yeah.
Let's definitely do it again. We should maybe flesh out some articles. I think that would be a lot of fun, and try to get lost in the weeds on some of the things uh, that are kind of contemporary and people are talking about on social media.
Yeah, sure. Actually, what comes to mind, actually, I think that we should do this next time, is that I actually came up with an article last week, or maybe I don't know when it came out. It came out very recently about, I'm not sure the title actually. I found it on X, in which a woman wrote an article in which she said that, quote, I think this is a direct quote, that getting rid of women wouldn't solve male problems. So she was basically saying that male spaces wouldn't help men, and that men hanging out with other men in male spaces makes men misogynistic simply for hanging out with other. Meaning that if we, what we're okay,
Or
what
make
we're
them like
doing,
trannies.
yeah, no, what we're doing, for example, what we're doing right now, like us three, if we let's say had this in person, but we had like let's say, seven other guys with us, there were 10 of us hanging out together would make us misogynistic just by way of hanging out with other men. And then there's also
Well,
another article that showed that I think it was St. Louis, Kentucky, in which they're now doing 50-50 custody with divorced couples. And that, again, the implication is an anti-man implication that simply by increasing the amount of custody men have, there will be more abuse by default. Simply by having men having more custody, there's going to be more abuse because we're men.
well, yeah, that's based on a fallacy, and that
Yes.
that men abuse more.
Yes.
But
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we're at the end here because we went over a number of things. We went over the causes of the womanless man crisis, the causes and possible solutions, but there are solutions, as we said, that cannot be implemented by any individual. It would have to be, let's say, a societal change.
It's
yeah,
absolute pleasure with the two of
Yes.
you, always.
Okay.
yeah, it was fun.
You two also. So it was great talking. We'll catch up again. Could you guys just hang out for a moment?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. Let's just stop recording.
Give me 1 second.